Hi, this is Sean Murphy of SK Murphy. I'll be the MC for today's PATCA webinar. PATCA is the Professional and Technical Consultants Association. Learn more at patca.org. Please use the chat for questions during the talk. We will also have a Q&A session at the end. We're fortunate today to have a briefing on the concept of Sprint Zero by Dr. Rolf Biernath. Sprint Zero, a fast, focused due diligence sprint that pressure tests early product ideas before you commit major resources. This approach allows you to assess market desirability, technical feasibility, and profit defensibility before a significant investment. Dr. Biernath is a strategic product innovation expert and founder of Biernath Consulting. He helps companies reinvent products and unlock growth. He was an R&D leader at 3M and gained 58 patents. He brings deep technical and commercial insight to innovation strategy. He has a PhD in chemical engineering from UC Berkeley. Dr. Biernath.
Thanks, Sean. Yeah, this is exciting. I'm glad to be able to give this talk to everyone here. Develop this process based on reflection of a lot of programs that went right and went wrong in my career, mainly at 3M, but also outside. So anyway, love to share this with you guys. I'll touch on how to use generative AI in the process. Key thing to underline here is part of my goal here is I want to make 10 significant new products with 10 different companies within my view of my consulting life is like 10 to 15 years. So at normal success rates, that's not going to happen over a normal career. So I've been focusing on what's needed to make sure the products I get involved in are successful. At this point, I've got 2 down, 8 to go. Here's a poll. You can punch your numbers into the chat if you want. These are common issues I've seen come up with product development. Basically, either you have too many ideas, not enough clarity, the team's misaligned with priorities. Engineering wants one thing, the CEO wants another. Unvalidated ideas gain momentum. Sometimes that happens because somebody's created a beautiful looking prototype and everybody's attention is drawn to that. I actually argue that you need to wait on prototypes, and I'll tell you why later. Other things are like been burned but can't afford to make bad bets as well. So these are common things. Sean, is anybody throwing anything in the chat?
Sorry, so we've had a couple of 1s and 1 3.
Okay.
So it's a combination of either too many ideas or bad idea or unvalidated ideas gaining momentum.
Gotcha. Yeah, those are common. Backstory for me is in my 30-year career at 3M, I spent now becoming called hard tech projects. I define that as building products for customers who don't yet know they'll need your product using technologies that don't yet exist. So you developing products using emerging technologies. I had a project I worked on at 3M for 2 years. We had about 5 engineers on the project. At the end of that 2 years, when we shut the project down as unsuccessful, we canned it. I met with the executive VP at the time. I thought it was going to be a real "you're fired" moment. Instead, he simply asked me how much we spent outside of 3M as opposed to inside 3M. That answer was about 45K. So he chalked it up as a 45K R&D effort. And I felt like I didn't know how to explain that to the team. And I had trouble explaining it even to myself. We took a bit of hit of morale because, nobody wants to work on a program for 2 years that doesn't go anywhere. It's not good for your career. It's not good for just feeling like you've contributed much. So since retiring, I took an early retirement at 3M back in 22. And since then, I've been reflecting on what worked, what didn't work, why did it work, why didn't it work? And key thing I've discovered with that $2 million program that I described, it's basically the time that it would, 2 years, 5 engineers, works out at about $2 million. After 2 years, it's a long time to say to kill the program. Would have felt a lot different had we been able to do that in the first 2 months or even in the first 2 weeks. And so what I've done is reflect on what are the early decisions that you can make, what are the best ways to find the things that need to be corrected early on. And one of the things I have found was a flaw in a lot of those programs was we relied a lot on prototypes to sell the program rather than learn what the customer needed. We built the prototypes and we were using it to sell it to our management. And you need to a point, right? Your management has to be on board for the project to gain any traction. But prototypes give you a false sense of confidence. They make people think that it's further along than it is. And mostly prototypes don't scale. You've made one, it looks good, it's using some exotic materials, it was handmade, uses stuff that can't be molded or whatever. And so it masks the fundamental flaws that could exist in that project. So the biggest hurdle that I'm wrestling with is most products fail, right? According to MIT and Stanford, 9 out of 10 products fail, and about 7 of those actually lose money, which led me to conclude that most product ideas aren't really assets. They're liabilities until you can prove otherwise. So how to remedy this is I've done a lot of deep research on the projects I worked on. I've done a lot of questions, basically focusing on what questions were asked too late in the project. And what of those, what were the leading indicators of impending success or failure? And those basically summarize into what I've created in this sprint here. Basically trying to address what addresses 90% of the failure modes and come up with framework I call the sustainable profits framework, and we'll cover that in the next slide, I think. Developed an evidence-based prioritization process that gets beyond the opinions and the pressure test sprint that involves, well, at this point now, 16 to 18 worksheets. Need to correct that. The prioritization workshop is interesting. What I mean by evidence-based, evidence-based is when you say the customer desires this product, it's not a vote on a 1 to 5 scale where 4 is, I really think the customer needs this product. It's a scale that says for a 5, you can provide 3 customers' names right now who are in buying positions who will vouch that they want to buy the product. They want to buy a solution to the problem that the product solves right now. And they would gladly pay you X dollars for that. And the salesperson who's been coming back and says, hey, I could really sell our product if we added this feature to it, that rates as a 1. So just is where 5 is the strongest, and you've got hard data, you've got real people you can call, truly validate the problem. So this is a sustainable profits framework. It is 3 questions built around viability, in which I mean, will the customers eagerly pay to solve the problem that your product addresses? Feasibility is the engineering side of things, and that is, can you build and scale the solution profitably? And then the defensibility is the third question. That's all about defending your product from copycats. And that's frequently done with patents, but a lot of other moats and economic moats are important there, such as, first to market, network effects. If you can make your data worth more, the more people that use it, that's the network effect that really helps lock people into your product. That's why everybody still uses Facebook, even though they also diss Facebook every time they use it, because you're kind of locked in and the data that they've got is become so valuable. And in fact, patents for a lot of products aren't economical. A lot of products like such software, it's really hard to police a software patent. it's hard to prove that somebody is using your patent. The other thing is here that if you're brilliant in any one of these circles, it doesn't matter. But believe it or not, if you're brilliant in any two, it doesn't matter either. Because if the customer wants your product and you can build it, but you can't defend it, it's just going to become a new commodity in a matter of time. If it's the customer ultimately doesn't care about it, it's a doomed product. You know, you've created some irrelevant piece of engineering, and if it's something that people want, like the hover bike or something like that, you know, it's the fly over the traffic. It's wishful thinking. You could patent it if you could figure out how to make it, but engineering wise, it's not feasible. So you need all three to keep your profits.
So this is a very interesting variation on what's commonly presented as the design thinking trifecta. And you're actually this is thinking beyond market entry to can we build a sustainably profitable business?
Yes, and that's the key thing that I've found is missing, like in the lean startup framework, is people, you know, like I
So
read through
IDEO,
Steve.
I think IDEO, I forget the guy, but the
Yeah,
IDEO guys were the champions of the design thinking. But same thing, they're all about new products and successful launch.
right, right, yeah, and so this is you can have the new product and be successful, but still become a commodity,
Yeah,
and so that's what I'm trying to avoid here. Um,
thank you. This is very good.
Thanks. For example, I've got a few case studies here. We got the Google Glasses, excellent piece of technology. They're able to build it, lots of patents covering it, but ultimately people didn't care for it, and there became even a cultural backlash. Uh, Now we have the Meta glasses coming out, which are essentially very similar to the Google glasses in function, but in their form, they're so much more similar to what people are used to. And everybody loves a pair of Ray-Ban glasses. And Meta was brilliant in partnering with Ray-Ban because nobody's going to suddenly start dissing Ray-Ban glasses. Uh, and so even though they maybe have a camera in the hinge, so that's a good move, and we'll see how that plays out for Meta. But the Google Glass has definitely uh, suffered from poor social acceptance. Then there's the hoverboards. Those viability, everybody loved them. Feasibility, very doable, especially after the Segway, basically built off of similar technologies as the Segway had in it. But the business defensibility was really low. And so that became a commodity and very rapidly. And what happened with the commodity there too was a lot of low cost players entered the market with very cheaply made products, and safety issues arose, and kind of killed that product as a general class. Then you got Segway. I should just flip my slides here. Viability was poor here. It was kind of expensive, uh, but technical feasibility was brilliant that way. Strong patent portfolio, but not enough market demand. Now you basically see mall cops using them and tourists and that's not enough to drive a big win. Juicero is another one. That one's one that was basically uh, pureed fruit in pouches that was run through this machine. People discovered that they could just squeeze the juice packs by hand and squirt out the stuff into the glass, uh, which basically meant it was just a really expensive juice pack. And the company collapsed after ridicule. So yeah. Positive note, is the Post-it note. That's one that customers love. I like to tell people, Post-it note for has one of the best user interfaces in the world. It's about the most intuitive thing to use. Somebody gives it to you, writes something on there, sticks it on your paper. You find thousands of other uses for that without any instruction manual. There's no cookbook recipes on how to use Post-it notes. There's nothing, but people use Post-its for everything on under the sun. Uh, so it's technically feasible. The trickiest thing actually about, or number of tricky things about it actually, but it's a low adhesion adhesive that they're using, and part of the challenge was how do you make it stick to the paper to begin with? So basically, you have to bond it to the paper, but not to the other surfaces that it's coming in contact with. The other thing was figuring out how to stack it into these nice blocks without having the stuff walk around or fold up, make the fan folds and stuff on you. So there are still trade secrets that haven't been cracked on that, which is why all the other sticky notes that you can buy out there are still inferior in performance. So that's been one
So,
that's had good lasting value.
so Rolf, we have two questions. One that came in
Sure.
a little bit I missed, which is when you were showing the Ray-Bans, there was a question, did you see that Meta seems to be letting go a lot of people in the AI space? Are those glasses in support of
Hmm.
AI apps or
I don't know. I
okay?
don't know enough of how Meta is organized on that. What was the other
So
question?
so different question is what strategies should you use for an AI oriented micro SaaS startup? I think micro SaaS means small team. Right now it's an overcrowded there's a ton of them out there because there's low barriers to entry. How would you attack that problem if you were a small team trying to develop a AI enabled SaaS product?
I would really work hard and I think actually the process I'm going to describe here will help with that, but I'd really focus in on is the problem you're solving important?
Okay.
Day one, that's where you start, and then yeah, we'll actually get there
All
right
right.
here now.
I'll ask again when we get to the end.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Um, Yeah, so what I put together is a 10-day pressure test. You can call it a sprint, you can call it a workshop, boot camp. It's really kind of all the above. What it isn't a prototyping sprint. There's no prototypes made in this sprint. It's focused on basically doing due diligence that the product will be profitable if it's made. Um, and at the end of the sprint, there's pretty clear decisions that can be made afterwards based on data and research. So the cool thing about this is you can get clarity about the ideas quickly and with minimal um, excess investment. Basically, in 2 weeks, and sometimes it can go faster if you find a clear red flag that comes up. You just say, okay, we either find a pivot for it or we kill it. Um, whereas I've had one client that I've done this process with who's realized he's got a better product than he thought he had. And so it's helping him justify adding more people to the development effort. So question number one is we're essentially going to work our way through the Venn diagram here. Is problem viability? Does the customer care enough that they want to eagerly purchase a solution? Um, because if nobody cares, it doesn't matter how technically brilliant your idea is, nobody's going to buy it. So this is really where you're understanding the pain points, the customer journeys, validating demand. Um, it's done. I've got a number of worksheets put together on this. There's also a website I helped build called salesprep.com. And if you're interested in that, I can get you codes for like a 2-month trial on that. I'm not here to advertise that at all. I just found it's useful for me in this, in terms of like you basically tell it what problem your product solves, and it tells you the process your customer probably uses to solve that problem right now, and the key problems they're probably facing in doing that. So it's a good start off place with AI to kind of start assessing what the problem is all about. So then developing a interview script, assessing eagerness to pay. I really use the word eagerness to pay because I think willingness to pay is perhaps the metric, that's the spectrum, but the winners are all where the customer is eager to pay. So, you know, an 8, 9, or 10 uh, on a 1 to 10 scale for willingness to pay is eagerness to pay. So I cap it off at that. Market timing fit, that's basically making sure that your product is ready when the market's ready. I had lots of products fail at 3M because we were ready years and years before the customer was. And it's really hard in a big company or in a startup to sustain yourself if your product is ready 3 years before the market starts to grow for it. uh, your management's going to run out of support. Your investors are going to run out of support. So getting the timing right is important. Uh, Exploring that there's a fit with the business strategy and the business models that the company is capable of bringing to market is important, as is like who loses if we win. There's going to be both outside external winners and losers, and there's going to be internal winners and losers. Like if you in a big company like 3M, it's hard to develop any new products where you're not having some negative impact on some other existing products. So it's important to know who those people are so that you can work with them and try to help make it a win-win situation for everybody. So using AI, there is lots of ways you use AI here. Studying the reviews, forums, looking for complaints, generating your personas and interview scripts. We even interview the AI as though they're the customer. And research uh, by one company I've worked with said that they get about 70 to 80% of the uh, true needs identified with AI. There's obviously some hallucination that happens. There's also just a lot of validation that happens. You really don't know anything until you've talked to enough customers, is the long and short of it. But you can learn a lot about your customers through interviewing the AIs. Um, uh, Second question is all about technical feasibility. Can you build and scale it with existing tech? If the tech doesn't exist yet, it's not a product development program. It's a technology development program. And that's where it's important to know because if you have like a discovery happens here or inventive breakthrough happens here, sits on your product development timeline, that just doesn't work because it's hard to schedule discoveries. It's hard to schedule breakthrough inventions. Um, so, what we do here is look at the different solution concepts, the manufacturability, and like look for bottlenecks and other things that are going to become a problem. For software, for hardware, this is kind of how manufacturability becomes an issue. For software, it becomes more of a what platform did you choose, and can you scale on that platform to the number of users that are going to be needed to be profitable. So it's not, can you prototype it? If the problem is worth solving and the technology could make it, that's sufficient for passing this test. And here basically do some unit cost research. You can use, I've used Perplexity on this because I like how it'll pull out the references pretty well for me. So unit economics, uh, then so you do the unit cost on the competitive options in first, and then you do the unit economics on your own option and compare.
So, Rolf, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I took a look on the website. I don't see where you've got these worksheets. I wanted to put a link in the chat. Are
Oh,
they?
yeah. No, the worksheets aren't, that's something we need to talk about. Yeah, that's where I can't really provide the worksheets
Okay.
carte blanche to people. That's
Okay.
something where
So contact you for worksheets.
contact me for worksheets and we'll figure
Okay.
something out. Yeah. Yeah. I've got some intro worksheets for some of these. Yeah. And then, is the science, engineering, and technology ready for it? Does the value chain support the product? Like, can you build the product at a price that the supplier can, not the supplier, that your distributor can then sell the product at? And so on. So say the grocery, you've done some goes through the grocery store, but that's going to get sold to a distributor first. The distributor then sells it to the grocery store. Each has to have their markup. Um, and then, yeah, so those are kind of some of the key aspects there is just make sure everybody can win along the chain, uh, of delivery. And AI is helpful here as well. It can help design practical solutions, help you benchmark against your competitors and do some scenario uh, play out of different scenarios. And I've used it surprisingly well for first pass cost models. It's become a situation where if you're not aware of it, your customers can pretty much go to the AI tools now and say, what are the base costs of this product? And what is the should cost for this product, and what is and then compared to the price cost you're asking. And there's got to be a lot of value uh, that you bring nowadays because the customer knows what your raw material costs are, and they know what your rough processing costs are. So anyway, AI can really help you along with this. A lot of what this book is about. I wrote a chapter in this book. It's called The Generative Organization. Got it back there. It's a really big book, very uh, very worthwhile read. It has a GPT for each chapter in it, and basically will take you through developing everything from the idea, brainstorming the ideas to assessing usability and stuff. It doesn't take you quite as far as the defensibility questions that I'm addressing here, but it takes you quite a ways in the innovation space. Third question and this is kind of the novelty that I've brought here, is can you defend the business? Can you defend against copycats? And that's everything from IP strategy to the different economic moats and knowing what your competitors are likely to do. So anticipating what they're going to do and all, because your margins will just erode otherwise if you don't have any good defensibility to it. Worksheets I've got there are basically start out with like researching what are the competitive alternatives. Again, AI is pretty darn good with this research now. Um, Mapping out how you plan to defend the business. Uh, there's moats and momentum worksheet, like basically pick of all these different ways to keep your momentum faster than your competitors and build moats for your product. There's IP audit in there, looking at the risk of market erosion as well. So, um, yeah. So AI is useful here because you can do prior art scanning. Basically, still, I refer people to patents at google.com. There's, I'm waiting for Google to integrate AI into their patents search. Uh, I haven't seen it yet. Maybe it's, I hope it's on the radar for them. The biggest problem with patents is patents don't use English the way normal people do. And so if you try to train a large language model on patents, it'll read much more stilted than ChatGPT currently does. And in fact, will use language completely uh, it'll use language very awkwardly. Let's just put it that way. Because patents are written in legalese, not in human language as much as we like to believe it is. With the right tools, there are patent drafting tools out there now. Um, and then also you can do stuff with the scenario simulations. Are there any questions at this point, Sean? Or are we good?
Just an endorsement of the book that someone just said they bought it. It's a great book and it's useful for workshops and ideas on innovation. Your generative organization playbook.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I don't make anything on that book, so I just push it because it's in fact useful. So yeah, so basically Sprint Zero in action, way carried out is intake process, get the context for the product, what the problem is that it solves, why you think it fits the business. Then the test part is where all the work happens. That's where we address those three fundamental questions. And then there's a final synthesis period where you put together everything you've learned through working through it all. And then you decide. Best practice that I encourage people to do here is if it's a kill decision on the project, is not to kill it right away, but rather socialize the answer first around the company and kind of see if somebody sees some option or opportunity that others are missing. Because you don't want to kill ideas that are still promising just because you don't know all the information about it yet. So, yeah, so if it's a go, it just means you're going into sprint one. It doesn't mean you got the problem, that you've got the product all developed. It just means you've really got a good handle on what sprint one needs to address. The sprints are all about learning. You know, the follow-on sprints are all about learning and validating that you can build the product and in fact developing the product. Uh, this sprint zero is about making sure that the problem's worth solving, that it can be solved using given technologies, and if you solve it, that it's worth solving because your business will be defendable. So this is a kind of a one pager I put together on it. Uh, Basically, the problem, you waste time, money, miss targets, and if you're a product leader in a company, you kind of damage your credibility if you have enough failed projects. Uh, Solutions are the viability, feasibility, and defensibility. Outcome is go pivot or stop. It helps protect cash flow, increases portfolio value. And regardless of the decision, go pivot or stop, it really accelerates the progress on the project. And that results in saved time and money just from the opportunity cost alone. Or if you do this sprint, you've asked the questions that really do kill about 90% of the programs that I've looked at. And if it, you'll always still have some risk in every program. This isn't a magic panacea that solves all the problems. And when you're done with the first week, the first 2 week sprint, you don't have a product at the end. You don't even have a prototype, but you do have confidence that the problem you're solving is worthwhile, um, and that it's worth investing into developing the product. So, um, key things and a reason why somebody would hire a consultant to come in and help on this is objectivity and teaching the process of how to work through these questions. Some things I bring in addition are like I've got a lot of intuition because I've worked a lot across a lot of industries and markets, and have a lot of technical fluency both within different industries and among different functions. So I I enjoy that. I'm a generalist and really do want projects to succeed. I don't want to come in and just to kill projects, but I want to help companies develop the right products and stuff. So the key things here are validating early and fast, um, across those 3 dimensions. AI can really help accelerate this process. It really wouldn't be possible to do in 2 weeks if you didn't use AI. Just normal research processes would take a week or two on any one of the worksheets. Um, and then you get to your decisions and stuff. So these are some links here. Look me up on LinkedIn. Be happy to connect with any and all of you. Uh, I'll talk with Sean. I think we can make these slides available.
Yeah, no, we definitely will.
Yep.
So, this sprint could be done actually even before doing a PRD or even before a full team is assembled, right? In other words,
Correct.
and you could revisit this periodically. It's not really, this is not, you're calling it Sprint Zero, but it's more of a framework for kind of risk assessment and where additional research is needed, right?
Yeah. Yeah. This is, I think it's kind of best used before chartering the team, but you still want to, it's best by bringing in a mixed group of functions and technical strengths. Yeah. And
This
yeah,
is
yeah, it could be used midway through in a project and you get a pretty good sense of if the project's going the right direction or if it's got a significant hang up that needs to be addressed right away.
interesting. So most of your examples were consumer examples. Have you seen changes needed or how this might be applied for B2B?
Yeah, and in fact, all my projects that I built this off of were all B2B products. So the principles all apply there. I pulled out as an example the consumer ones just because they're relatable to everybody. It's not like trying to explain why a widget works for a particular customer. Yeah.
Yeah, one observation I remember reading at the time was that if Google had gone after niches. I mean, because essentially AR glasses and whatever you want to call it now, XR, AR, that's all a very well established industrial niche. It's just only because they went immediately. It's similar to a mistake that Trip Hawkins made with 3DO. Instead of starting at a higher price point and aiming at business, he went immediately for a mass consumer brand with new technologies. And I wonder if there's rules of thumb there.
Yeah, there probably are, and that gets into play too, like why certain products aren't valuable enough to patent.
Right.
Like if you're a small company and you're selling a $20 product and only, you have to sell a lot of that at 20 or 30% margin to earn $1 million, and it's going to cost you to actually prosecute that patent and defend against people infringing your patent, you know.
Questions on recommending uh, what kind of ways to test your B2B pricing.
Yeah. And that one's good because in the feasibility, in the viability part, there you can really ask a lot of questions about the value that the that a solution to the problem would have for your customer. Uh,
So do you ask how much you're willing to pay, or what techniques would you recommend?
yeah, I've got some ideas in there. There's the sort of stuff where you float of a price by people, and you say, you know, would you buy it if it was this price? And there's things there. There's also what's the other one I was thinking of. In terms of understanding how much time the customer's putting into dealing with that problem right now, how they're currently solving the problem right now, you can figure out how much it's costing them now. And as a rule of thumb, it's a no-brainer for them. If you can save them 10x, they'll people will leap onto your product quickly. If you're saving them 10%, now you've got a game where you've got to explain to your customer why 10% is worthwhile to them. And if it's not so maybe a 2x savings, or saving them 50% might be worthwhile to them. And finding the thresholds at which they're going to make a decision is important. Um, but yeah, really getting a good sense of how they're solving the problem today, because that's kind of the easiest problem to solve. And I know I say that kind of in irony, because I said I work on a lot of hard tech products where they don't actually solve that problem today because they don't know they got the problem. But um, most problems that products
What
address
would be
are
example of a
solvable.
product that solves a problem that a customer didn't know they needed, didn't
Oh,
know they
okay.
had?
Yeah, sure, sure. I can tell you about one of my inventions at 3M. I invented the form in place disk drive gasket. Uh, Prior to that, everybody was stamping and forming the gaskets that went around the hard disk drive to seal it. Um, and there's a ton of waste in that process. It
So the
was
problem they had was they wanted to lower the cost of disk drive production.
They didn't know there was really
No, but they had a desire to lower the cost of the drive, right?
yes, yeah, and increase the reliability.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
so
So in
that
fact,
was
they had a vector, right?
they had a vector, yes,
Right.
yes, and there was a lot of waste going on because a lot when you cut out gaskets, there's a lot of manual work and pick and place picking work that has to be done to separate things, and we basically came up with a way to dispense the uh, gasket material out of a needle into place, flash cure it, and then the process could just continue on. And so basically, they flash cured the adhesive on the lid, made the gasket that way, and then basically could just supply and bolt it all down. So that
R-
was back in the days of the hard disk drives.
Right.
Um,
Right. I guess I'm reminded of a quote by Oren Harari that the electric light didn't evolve from the continuous refinement of the candle. I think you have to be careful of anchoring your product completely in the form, fit, and function of the current solution.
very true. Yeah.
So question from Kimberly. When you're talking about asking folks, is this like a focus group?
Probably not. Focus groups are focus groups tend to give you kind of a group think, and that can be beneficial at times, but is generally, Sean, like what you said, it's like asking the group, do you want to how would you like us to improve our horses?
All right. Okay.
You won't get to the car with that.
Aaron,
Yeah.
you had a question?
Yeah, first thing, thank you so much. This was a phenomenal presentation and discussion. I hope hopefully it's recorded and or slides are available because there's just a lot there. I'd like to go.
Yes and yes.
Oh, awesome. Um, so I originally came from the sort of MPD, the old StageGate MPD world
Mm.
under Dr. Cooper. Went to workshops in the early 2000s when I was at Honeywell. Um, and then sort of evolved and got experience in what maybe people might have called new product development, or like my friends would, some of them called it postmodern, which had a lot more emphasis on sort of agile and marketing centric customer discovery type approaches. Have you found in your approach when it comes to validating assumptions and or the value discovery process, have you found anything that any hints or anything that you feel is sort of fundamental that you should always, prioritize? Because I found there's a struggle. I work B2B. It's all enterprise
Mhm.
kind of centric. That everything is really judged by its incremental value relative to the friction in the organization, right? It's almost like
Mm.
it's a completely insular process where you're not really doing, hey, there's a broader consideration that this could be $100 million TAM for this, new set of features. It's, what's the bureaucratic friction to go from A to B or A to Z, and is that worth the toil relative to the incrementals that we'd have to do to change the SKU or the categories. And a lot of times that just equals, killing the business case. Even if, and then you see someone else come up with the solution in the market 2 years later, and they're like, how did that happen? It's like, well, they actually did it,
Mhm.
and so I found that's a really, like, that's the chasm that I found is almost like, it's like Lord of the Rings. Like you're going in there to just be slaughtered every single time. And I think it makes everyone gun shy. Um,
Yeah.
so I don't
Yeah.
know what your experience is trying to, because what I've found, the only thing I've found is trying to get real customers to sort of invalidate the corporate assumptions and
Mm.
not rub it in their face, but just sort of leave it there saying, I don't know what you want to do with that. And at a certain point, there's enough momentum there that maybe get somebody to get off the pot, right? To kind of jump and go. But that's about the only thing I've ever found. I don't know if this makes sense. Sorry for the long you know, kind of speech around this, but I really appreciate it. Hopefully the question made sense. Um,
Yeah. Thanks, Aaron. Yeah, I think what I hear you saying is you're talking about like what happens is inside the company that's developing the products, and the corporate friction that's there, or the corporate Ethereum, we called it kind of the corporate immune system, that was basically worked against innovation.
yep.
Uh, Companies are innovative, people are innovative, but there's like it's like wading through mud sometimes, and and there's a necessity to do a bit of have your company be a bit that way. So it's because if you're going to manufacture and scale a product, you have to have a consistent product that you're manufacturing and scaling. And so you're eventually going to have to hire enough people that are all about quality and consistency and enduring, uh, sustaining sustainability of the product. Uh, and innovators tend to be throwing wrenches in the works all the time. And so there's kind of a natural uh, competition there between those two frames of mind, the delivery channel and the innovation channel. Um, the best solution, I think, is letting the customer speak. Kind of what you said, it's you find that those customers that want it, and preferably more than one customer. If it's just one customer, then it's basically like one data point, and it's hard to persuade with one data point. If you have, three significant customers that you don't even have to tell them what your solution to the problem is yet. You just have to really validate that the problem's important enough to them. And that's you know, that's where the work gets done. But and that's why I said like the customer cares. Yeah, we have 3 people we can call who vouch that this is an important problem for them right now that they would love to buy a solution for.
Ron, did you want to ask Ron Person, did you want to ask a follow-up to your question?
I think you're muted, Ron.
Sorry, my son just walked in at the same time. Uh, yeah, it's just I funded a startup once before, and after about a year, we had to shut down during the recession. It was quite painful. Um, and you know, it's that whole thing with a micro SaaS. You might have a great idea, but how do you get believability and how do you really test it without giving it away? At the same time, there's so many new products coming out in the AI and the SaaS space that it's inevitable that there's a washout and there's only 1 or 2 left as they all aggregate and merge. And so, you know, what are the feasible alternatives to actually do you plan on going all the way, but then have escape ejection seats along the way to partner with somebody to, you know, to sell out? I guess I'm kind of confused here.
That sounds like a big business strategy question, Ron.
No,
It
I
is.
think what
Yeah.
he's
Or maybe I'm
so I think what he's trying to ask is, Rolf, a lot of your examples have been working with technology that doesn't quite work yet. And yet it looks like with AI right now, it's actually evolving very rapidly. And
Mhm.
so it's less a question of what can we make work as to what can we make stick, or where can we build some kind of sustainable niche. Is that fair, Ron? Or
That's pretty close, Sean. Thank you. Yeah, it's because things are changing so rapidly, you could create a product, get it out there, and then it's done. You know, it's completely blown away. I mean, think of like Notebook LM from Google. That's an incredible product, and there's probably 100 small products that have, you know, people in their garage in their small 3, 4 person company that have just lost their shirt. So it's just changing so fast. It's really kind of scary. I mean,
yeah,
I love it, but at the same time, it's the risk is higher than it's ever been before.
the risk is higher than it's ever been, but also the ease is higher than it's ever
Yeah,
been. I mean, there's a
yeah.
lot of these companies that used to be 3, 4 person companies that are now 1 person companies because they're vibe coding the project and demonstrating value that way. Um, part of what we are seeing right now is the cost of prototyping for software is being driven to zero.
Hmm.
Whereas like for hardware and firmware in items that involve something, some, you know, tangible component to it, those still have the economies that they have, which is it takes months to develop a new product, or even just to get the next version out. Even if you know what you're going to do, it takes a long time to execute on it. Whereas software and websites and electronic stuff can essentially be turned around so quickly now with such detail, that yeah, sometimes the argument that I have about making a prototype is it, I'm really thinking about that from the physical product world because that's where most of my experience is from. There's probably, and I try to comment on how software is affected by this, but at the same time, I recognize that my limitations are I've usually had some degree of a physical product is part of my product set.
so let's take one final question from Aaron.
Sure.
Yeah. So, you know, one thing I've seen is a lot of technology people seeking a solution and solution seeking a customer. And
Mhm.
I grew up in a different world, which was you center the customers and you understand their, you really learn what they need without, trying to sell them anything or, bombard them. And then you start to tease out portfolios of potential solutions, whether you have them or not, just, problems to solutions. Then you figure out if there's really something that you can viably do in a product or a service, and then you figure out the business cases from there, and then that sort of portfolios up. I am wondering, I came up with a model like a couple years ago, which, went a little somewhere inside my company, 25% somewhere. I called it customer market fit. So I just invert the market, the product market, the value market, all those others, because it seems like everyone's just like talking around the customer.
Mm.
And what and I guess my idea around this is just if you anchor to your customer and you flywheel a service product universe, then your customer is your P&L. And as long as you have a robust enough generational set of relationships, both in people and product and their customers, right? Customer's customer, then you really have a more enduring or a higher potential of a more enduring set of businesses. Now, it does run up against this idea of the VC scaling, one person make one product and it goes to bajillion and you cash out, because it's the exact opposite of that. It's creating all this friction and stickiness, in some ways against that. It's to say, like when your notebook LM idea, or, it's not just about notebook LM, it's about how do you use it in a vertical, in a
So
geo.
I'm gonna have to cut you off. Is there a
Yep.
question in there or just a statement?
Yeah, no, yeah. So the question is, what do you think about that degree of specialization, targeting, focus away from this sort of generic technology generation push, which is just everyone has the same table stakes of 5,000 AI tools, and we're just running around with our heads cut off. It's more of, I've got Bausch, Canada brakes team as my customer, and I'm going to make them as successful as possible across a portfolio that's their needs. It's a much more custom model. I don't know if it's actually lower margin. I think it's maybe a lower VC outcome, but it's potentially a much more enduring model.
As long as Bosch stays a leader.
Fair. But so then you say, all right, let's go after the brakes vertical.
Yeah. 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 No, I'd be happy to talk with you
Sure.
Afterwards here on this stuff.
Well, I want to thank Dr. Biernath for a fantastic briefing, and we'll see you back next month. Thanks again, everybody. A lot of good questions, a lot of good things, and we'll break here.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Great job, Sean. Amazing.